Hi, I'm Non from My Authentic Style, and this channel is dedicated to helping you find your authentic style. In this video, I'll be discussing the Kibbe Theatrical Romantic Image Identity, the body type, the style profile, and at the end, I'll be sharing a sample wardrobe for this type. As always, this video assumes you've taken the Kibbe body type test and you've determined your type to be theatrical romantic. If you have not and would like to, you can go back a few videos where I take you through the test, and in the following video, I take you through the answers, which will help you hopefully identify your type. That said, for a theatrical romantic, a sample answer sheet could look something like this: a lot of D and E with some A. So a lot of softness because we are in the romantic category. Everything is lush and a lot of yin. But there is that sharpness to this type that differentiates it from being fully romantic. Your position on the yin yang scale is soft yin with a slight yang undercurrent. Physically, you are delicate in bone structure and soft in body shape, with delicate and full facial features. Your extreme yin foundation is overpoweringly dominant. Your slight yang undercurrent comes from a slight sharpness to your bone structure. The key thing here is that you are definitely a romantic type. So even though it's a theatrical romantic and that yang undercurrent is there, it is secondary to that romantic aspect. And now let's discuss Kibbe theatrical romantic body type. Kibbe has categorized this type as femme fatale chic. Before we begin, it's important to note that every theatrical romantic woman will look slightly different. It's the presence of a petite frame, double curve, and a delicate sharpness that makes the theatrical romantic. If the term double curve and petite as it pertains to Kibbe is something you're not familiar with, I do recommend you go to my video where I discuss David Kibbe and Kibbe terms, as I think that'll be helpful. Curve in Kibbe world isn't curve in the way that we normally think of it. So that might be confusing if it's the first time that you hear it. And that video might be useful in helping you understand this Kibbe verse. Height: moderate to petite, usually 5'5" and under. Body type: soft and voluptuous, although trim and smallish, as opposed to wide and bulky. Hourglass figure, curvy bust line, and hips with a waspish waist. Soft or fleshy arms and legs. Bone structure: small and delicate, slightly sharp edges in the shoulders, jawline, cheekbones, or nose. Small hands and feet in proportion to height. Facial bones are small, delicate, and slightly sharp. So here we have three women: Selena Gomez to the left, Mila Kunis in the middle, and Selma Hayek to the right. And all of these are Kibbe verified theatrical romantics. They present, in my view, slightly differently this body type. Selena Gomez and Selma Hayek have more of that voluptuous because they are fuller and they have a bigger bust line. They have more of that lushness, that yin, that softness to them. Mila Kunis is more on the yang aspect of it. And I like that because it shows a little bit of variation, but these are all women still in the same body type. So some of the things I just discussed will be easy checkpoints for Selma Hayek, for example. Tiny waist, hourglass figure. She's kind of the quintessential go-to, in my mind, theatrical romantic. And you can see that slight sharpness in some of her bones as well. But just very overall, there's a petiteness and there's a softness. And she is celebrated for being so voluptuous and curvy. And I also think she carries a romantic essence, which makes that even more prevalent for her. And she just has that vava voom factor to her because of it. Mila Kunis, in my opinion, I think also has a bit of that romantic essence. In fact, I think she just has a romantic essence because she is so easily, when she acted back in the day was always kind of the romantic lead in the rom-coms, and she had that sexy woman allure to her. And that is typically the romantic essence. She might have something else, but I do think that's dominant in her. And although her body type is not as lush and as leaning into the yin side of things, that essence carries, and she still projects that sort of image. Selena Gomez has the lush of the body type, but her essence blend, in my opinion, she carries more of that youthful energy. She has quite a lot of ingenue that I see in her, and then romantic becomes a minor essence for her. So she projects a completely different image. And I find that all to be very interesting. And we'll talk more about it as we break down this body type. Facial features: soft and lush, large, luminous eyes, sometimes slightly upturned, sometimes slightly quote unquote bedroom, just meaning they have a very sexy allure to them that is expressed in the combination of their features, but the eyes are so expressive and magnetic that that's what my understanding of that bedroom eyes term means. Full, luscious lips and soft cheeks. Coloring. Any coloring is possible, warm or cool, high contrast or blended, but a theatrical romantic usually is quite vivid with a delicate complexion that is luminous or translucent. Again, as always, I'm just going to say any coloring is possible because different women from different racial groups and ethnicities will express differently. Hair. Soft and luxurious to the touch, maybe very silky and wispy, or thick and wavy or curly. So, here again, any kind of hair texture is possible because women fall into all sorts of categories. So, anything can be considered theatrical romantic. I think it's more styling that becomes more specific. If overweight, the figure will remain hourglass with a defined waist. Upper arms, thighs, and face will become quite fleshy. So, our first example is Selena Gomez. And some of these are taken from when she was much younger. So, excuse that. It's just she has been in the public eye for a long time. So, here she is at, I think, her lowest weight that I've seen, possibly. But her body has developed enough. She has developed her shape, and there's a clear hourglass figure that she has there. Her waist is small in proportion to the rest of her. There's just that natural hourglass. There's a little bit of softness everywhere, but I can see angularity in her arms, and she carries a lot of softness in her face as well. So that's what she looks like on the lower weight side of things. As she gains weight, here we can't really make out her figure, but you can make out that she has gained a lot of softness. So there's additional flesh in her thighs and her belly area, and even her face has become a little bit puffier. Although again, she always has softness in her face, but there's just that additional softness to her head to toe. There's a widening and a thickening of her waist, although it does still look to be somewhat defined. And then as she gains more weight, the same thing just happens more. She has a lot more plushness to her, a lot in the thigh area, the upper arm area, her midsection. Everything just thickens and widens a bit, but I can still see a very lush and voluptuous figure. Everything gets bigger and more rounded, and there's a widening, but it seems to happen in a sort of proportional way where her figure looks not as defined, not as hourglassy defined for her, but still there. You know, she doesn't become straight. It's not like natural types, for example, where the widening in the center just makes them have a more almost boxy shape. This is also true for flamboyant gamines, for example. In her case, she maintains that hourglass leaning figure. And here we have Selma Hayek. And in that first image, you can see that very small waist in comparison to the rest of her. She looks just tiny and curvy, but there's also that sharpness. So the way she's standing does help the sharpness in the elbows, but I just see it in her bone structure, that slight sharpness that makes her more theatrical romantic as opposed to fully fledged romantic. She has that. And in the image next to it, a little bit more widening, I would say, in her waist, but she still pretty much has the same figure and a little bit more lushness to her, but she hasn't changed much. In all honesty, I don't think she has ever been outside of her weight that she is now. I think these pictures are possibly taken 30 years apart and she looks pretty much the same. So she's not a very good example for this. But I'm trying to kind of showcase that she has, in these last two images, there's just a widening of her midsection a little bit, more so in that black two piece, but she still maintains that soft hourglass figure. So these women typically will have that. Whether they lose or gain weight, they just sort of remain soft and lush and leaning towards that hourglass. And then finally, we have Jada Pinkett Smith, who I think is an interesting addition because she showcases a very different kind of manifestation of this body type. If I'm being honest, I think she's one of the ones that I had to really study and have to be convinced about the type that Kibbe cast her in, because to me, she just didn't come off as belonging to this type. I think my instinct was to cast her as some sort of flamboyant gamine. But Kibbe has said this is her type, so we're going to use her as an example. And here you can see that the bone structure, hers is very strong, very dominant. This is her at a much lower waist, and the way that she's standing is perhaps creating more of this figure like illusion for her. That's possible, but I can see that shaping on her. The waist is small, and she has that figure. She doesn't have any of that lushness, really. She doesn't embody it as much. And here you can see that she is at a bigger weight than she is in that very first image, but she's still always petite. She has a very strong musculature to her. Her flesh is not soft and yin. It's very much closer to how you would describe that of a flamboyant natural. So if she was taller, she had a bigger frame, she would fall into that body type, I feel. There really is no variation between these three images. I chose them because I find her physique to be so incredibly awe inspiring. It's just so strong. And again, I think she's well into her 40s when these are taken. I'm not sure, probably there's a span, but she just has that strong musculature. So, again, for all these reasons, to me, she didn't come off as a textbook theatrical romantic. And I do think there's been confusion about her typing within the Kibbe sphere for that reason. But when in doubt, I do default to the man who built the system, and that works. So this is one possible composition for this type. And then here she's gained a little bit of weight, and you can see now a little bit more of that lushness and flesh in her upper thigh area, the widening of her abdomen. It doesn't really widen too much because she never really had that waspish waist. So proportionally, it's still pretty much the same, but it is softer, and there's just a general softness all over her, but her frame is still very much dominant. A theatrical romantic will not be extremely tall, have large or wide bones, have large hands and feet, have extremely prominent facial bones or features, have small narrow eyes and thin or straight lips, have a boyishly straight figure devoid of a defined waist. Here are some theatrical romantic celebrities. The bright green is verified by Kibbe, and the dull green is celebrities that Kibbe has typed as being theatrical romantic, although he has not verified them. And here is a full list of verified theatrical romantic celebrities. And now let's discuss theatrical romantic lines. Shape. Shape should be rounded, intricate, and ornate. A slight sharpness at the edge or tendency to the slightly oversized is good. Here I see that roundedness, that softness, and that lushness that we are continuing to emulate because that's at the core of this type, but with that additional sharpness. And that can be in a more tighter silhouette and heavier fabric. So in Selena's case, I see that sharpness of the V in that dress, which adds that yang element, but the rest of it is very yin. It's a shimmering gown. It's very nicely shaped to her body. Her waist is defined and it's very elegant. She just looks amazing. Salma Hayek, likewise, defined waist, soft fabric, there's that flowing aspect to it. And she has accentuated her bust and her waist. And it just looks very soft, but also there's a roundedness and a flowiness to it that she carries well. In Mila's case, she again I feel has more of that yang, so her fabrics tend to be more suited to her when they are a little bit heavier. And this dress is beautifully draped, shaped to her body. There's that sharpness of the V, but it's not overly flowy or overly delicate while still being very feminine. And I think they all look great. Avoid geometrics and symmetrical shapes. So, in this first blue image, I love Selena from the shoulders up. Like, I love this dress. I love the look. Her hair and makeup are incredible. That diamond necklace is so glamorous. She looks absolutely stunning. I love the color on her. But that dress itself has too much sharpness to it. The fabric is too heavy. It's too straight edged and blunt. So it doesn't work well with how much softness she has. And you can see that sharp point of that flap to the front of the dress, the sharpness in the shoe, and the neckline is better because it has a bit of that more curved. The fabric is folding into itself, so it's more circular. It's not sharply blunt, and that helps. But the dress as a whole is just too sharp against her, and there's just that disconnect and a lack of perfect harmony with it. If the fabric was just softer and more flowy, this would look so much more harmonious with her. To the right of that, the red dress is too symmetrical. So it's just lacking that additional sharpness. I know I just spoke about the first dress being too sharp, but this one lacks it entirely. It's too rounded and it's too symmetric. So there isn't anything in the dress that supports that yang undercurrent of the theatrical romantic. And the silhouette of this dress doesn't suit her at all. Her waist is defined, sure, but that flaring out, that A line kind of silhouette on her skirt is just way too big. She's lost beneath it. And the height of it, too, and all those folds in the skirt, it's too full, too much volume, and it just does not suit her. Avoid chunky or bulky shapes. So, this dress on Mila Kunis, the black dress, to me feels very bulky. Likewise with Selena's dress, she also has that kind of open hoop A-line skirt. The length of it is respectful of her short vertical line, but the way that it opens up just creates this wideness that doesn't work with her, especially because she has more of that sharpness to her. So when this just takes her further away from that, and it feels a little bit costumey, which means it's not gelling with her. It's not a perfect harmonious match. And then the dress to the right of that it's very chopped up. That skirt feels very bulky. There's just a lot going on. It's not streamlined enough, and that doesn't suit her either. Avoid sharp, severe shapes. So this ties into that first dress where I was speaking about Selena Gomez and that icy blue dress, very sharp, severe shapes, especially towards the bottom of the dress. But this look by Salma Hayek also has those sharp lines in it. That asymmetrical line across her chest is too severe. And then the one arm aspect of it also just too severe. And then there's that line across her chest where it's the neckline, but the side of her body is exposed. It's just weird. It's a weird dress and it doesn't do any of the things that it's supposed to. The fabric itself is not great on her, the fit is not great on her, but those geometrics of the dress are just not good for her. Emphasized again by that vertical pattern of that dress, just very separate from her. And then this isn't one of Kibbe's recommendations, but I would say avoid all large and irregular shapes. So here, Selena has that skirt that is just so unconstructed and irregular, and it's very strange on her. It doesn't do anything for her shape, and she is lost in essence beneath it. So I would avoid that for this type as well. Line and silhouette. Silhouettes should be hourglass, emphasizing the curves and showcasing the waist. The waist should be sharply defined, and the shoulders should be crisply padded, tapering at the wrists, hemline, and knee areas. Lines should be soft, draped, flowing, clingy, ornate, and intricate. So, interpreting this just creates a very feminine sort of silhouette and detailing and styling. That is what is going to be best for this type. In that first dress, that beautiful purple, like maybe royal bluish dress that Salma Hayek has on, you can see that draping, that beautiful draping that gives her waist great definition, but it's still flowy. It's so stunning. It's feminine, and the styling of it is very glamorous. She just looks great. To the right of that, the silhouette is more like a second skin, so hyper emphasizing her curves, and that again always works great for this type. The waist is defined and it gives her a great shape, and it has a little bit of that asymmetry, but very slightly because the where the necktie is, it's just slightly off center. So to me, kind of leans, gives it that touch of yang. Fabric is slightly more weighted, so this leans a lot more on the yang side as compared to her first look, but still very feminine and more sexy. But she looks great. To the right of her is Jada Pinkett Smith, and again she has that asymmetry, she has that draping, and the fabric is soft and gentle with a little bit of weight to it. The overall look gives great shape. She doesn't have that typical hourglass figure, so the dress isn't going to create that, but on somebody else it would have given that shape, if that makes sense. And that looks great for this type. They all really look great. Avoid all severe silhouettes. So here you have that very sharp A-line skirt again. There's also that sharp V in the front. This look is not awful. It's just that skirt throws it over the edge for me. I think if the sharpness was just in the chest, I would prefer that to be a little bit more rounded because it's sharp and it's also very deep, that V. So it's slightly severe, but she could have carried it off if the rest of the skirt wasn't amplifying that sharpness and those straight lines. But as it is, it just feels severe on her, and that dress kind of swallows the bottom part of her body up. And that fabric is very weighted and heavy on her. So I would have liked to see that be a lot more delicate and a little bit lighter, would have worked better. Avoid all oversized or unconstructed silhouettes. So here we kind of almost have the opposite problem. Selena is completely lost. Her shape is lost beneath this dress because it has no shaping. and her waist is not defined, and then it widens at the bottom, and it's very unconstructed and light in a way that just loses her figure beneath it. And it's not, I mean, she looks fine, but it's not doing anything for her really. Avoid all tailored silhouettes. This is kind of similar to that first one, but this has a lot more ornateness and tailoring to it. So if you look at that arm detail, that fabric is very heavy and it's just very strict and rigid. This same dress in a different fabric that allowed for movement and softness would be a lot more flattering on her. But as it is, it feels very cagey and just separate from her. She feels as though she's stuck in this dress, and it makes me uncomfortable for her. Avoid all wide or horizontal lines. So here I'm going to focus on the skirts of these dresses because they are very wide at the bottom and they cause this widening of the silhouette that then loses these women who are petite and who really do best when they are in a silhouette that better follows their shape to give them that beautiful hourglass figure that is typically synonymous with this type. Avoid all long vertical lines that hide the waist. So here, Selena, this is interesting to me. For most theatrical romantics, I do think this dress is just not going to flatter them because that the way that that skirt opens up swallows up this body type, and again, they require that shaping, that closeness to the body that emphasizes their beautiful hourglass figure. This is true for Selena as well. This silhouette is absolutely not her best. The long vertical of the dress being one piece, it's very long and then it just opens up like that and she's swallowed beneath it. That skirt just swallows her up. But this dress isn't awful on her. And I think it's because I see a very I see her dominant essence again as being that ingenue, and ingenue is that youthful, girlish energy that is very much linked to princess style dresses. And this reminds me of that princess style dress with the big bottom. And she's kind of leaning into it, but then the red is very bold and it's also bringing out her less dominant romantic essence. So there's a lot of things that are actually working with this look. If you just look at the silhouette, yes, it's not for her, but as a whole, you can't say you hate it on her because it does check some boxes. And it's okay for all of those reasons. I enjoy exploring that anyway, but typically avoid this silhouette for this type. And I think it's very interesting to compare this red dress that I just spoke about to the one right next to it, which I feel does not work on her at all. And I think the key differences are the essences of these dresses. The one to the left, to me, reads as more mature. It's the length of it. The top of it, yes, has that floral design, so it's a little bit very feminine, has that youthful aspect to it, sure, but the T length kind of thing and the shoes that she's wearing, it all just evokes an older, more mature woman, and the fabric is a lot stiffer. It doesn't give me little girl princess vibes. Yes, I do see that up top, but the rest of it, the most of it, just feels very older woman somehow. And she doesn't mesh well with that kind of energy. So it's just a complete clash. Whereas the other one, essence wise, is closer to her and she's able to carry it off, even though technically the silhouette is not her best. Fabrics. Fabrics should be lightweight and drapable for soft fluidity. Soft textures, a plush pile, sheer fabrics, and shiny fabrics are all excellent. Fluffy knits are also extremely effective. So here you have three women in these beautiful fabrics, and the key factors for all of them, especially the first two that Mila Kunis is wearing, is that fluidity. So there's a lightweight, flowy aspect to her dresses and her fabrics, and she looks great in that. Selena's dress has more of that plush, lush, and rich texture. It's like a blue velvet, and it's absolutely wonderful on her. And Salma Hayek's dress is somewhere in the middle in terms of weight, but it has that beautiful ability to drape around her body. You can see that in the neckline and in the waist, and it has that fluidity to it. So this is what to go for this type, and they all look great in these looks. Avoid stiff fabrics. So this leather, I don't know what the bodice is made of, but it's also very hard and stiff and heavy fabric. This entire look is just a little bit too heavy materially, but also aesthetically for Salma Hayek. It's not the lush, soft, feminine vibe of this type and of this essence of which she has. So it just looks very, I mean, it's interesting, but it's very separate from her. Avoid heavyweight fabrics. Here, Selena Gomez has this, I don't know what texture this is, but it feels like it would be heavy and a little bit gritty, and it doesn't have that drapeability or that flow. And again, it's too harsh against her. Avoid rough textures. Here, Mila is wearing that tulle dress, and tulle has, it's lightweight, but it has a very rough texture to it. And you can see that there's just that roughness and lack of shape and drapeability and flow. And this is not working for her. Avoid dull finished fabrics. So, sheen is important for this type. It's that sense of glamour that is tied to all romantic body types. So when they don't have that, it just feels very dull and very flat, the fabrics, and both of these looks embody that. Although, that said, sheen is not everything. So this look by Salma Hayek is definitely not one of her best. And there's a lot of things going on, but focusing solely on the fabric, it is shiny. It definitely has that sheen to it. It's not overly rough. I think it looks like it's very smooth, but there's something about it that feels very cheap, and that is going to always not work for this type because they have, especially for her, because she has the romantic essence too, and that essence requires that sense of glamour. So everything has to feel polished and elevated, glamorous, but that sense of polish has to be there. And this just feels, again, cheap. So it doesn't work on her. Now, let's look at all of these things together. Here is Selena Gomez very recently, and she's wearing these two black looks, and she looks absolutely stunning in both of them. But the look to the right, to me, is overall more flattering on her, and it's down to fabric choice. And the fabric choice determines the silhouette, because how your fabric behaves is going to affect how it lays on your body. Some fabrics are heavier and they keep their own shape, like the one to the left. It's heavier than the one to the right. And the properties of that fabric is just that you can have more tailoring to it. And it's a beautiful dress, beautifully done, but there's just that little bit of separation between her and it for that same reason. Whereas to the dress to the right, it has more of that elastic feel, more drapable, and it gives her that second skin feel that just shapes her body so beautifully. And it's as if her and the dress are one. So that's perfect harmony. And she is elevated in that look as compared to the left one. And she looks amazing in the look to the left, but the one to the right, because of how that fabric and that dress behave on her, just takes it to the next level. And now let's consider Selena Gomez in some suits. So this first look is, she looks okay, but this is not her best look. The head to toe dark suit, it's also a little bit oversized. There's a lot of sharpness to it. To me, she's swallowed by it, and the lines of this are not harmonizing with her. She is standing now and she is posing, which helps. But if you imagine her taking out her hand from her pocket and that jacket just if she walks naturally, will close in front of her. So she'll just be lost beneath that very boxy, very big suit. And there's too much sharpness and angularity against it, where she just feels like she's in this boxy suit cage. This one, the fabric is a little bit softer and more quote unquote drapeable than the other one, although it's a suit and they don't drape, but that softness and that little bit more lighter weightness of the fabric is more suitable to her. So while I again don't think that it's her best, but compared to these two, I would choose the one to the right any day. I think it suits her more. The lapels have a roundedness to them, which matches with the roundedness of this type. The fit is closer to her body line, so much narrower silhouette. For all of these reasons, the suit is just more harmonious with her. And then this one to the right, this white suit, again, very sharp and not flattering on her. There's a lot going on here. So that neckline and the tie and the three piece of it all, it just feels very restrictive and very sharp and angular and feels very much like a costume. And that sharp line down the middle of her pants, too much sharpness, too much angularity, and really working against her overall softness. But then, same suit, the minute she takes off her jacket and suddenly we can see her shape, this suits her so much more. It just, the ability to see her shape is so important for her. And these two side by side, same outfit, she literally just took off her jacket, but she suddenly looks so much better. So I hope that helps to illustrate how these things matter for different body types. Really seeing her waist and her shape has elevated this exact same look. And then this last one is, if she did want to actually wear a white suit, I think she's done it the best here, the without having to take off her jacket. So this has great shaping for her. Her waist, it follows her waist. The fabric is softer. It doesn't have that sharp crease down the middle, and it's just more drapeable. And it also has those ornamental feels to it. So on the shoulders, it's like adding joy to it, which makes it more glamorous. This is how she would do a suit and still honor her romantic lines. Lastly, we have Mila Kunis, who is an interesting one to look at because, like I said, I think she has a bit more of that yang aspect to her. So, in this dress that's very soft and delicate and lightweight, I think this is her least flattering look. There's a lot of separation between her and it because it is so soft and lightweight. The minute that she gets a fabric that's slightly heavier, that keeps more of its own shape, this is more in alignment with her because of that weight to the fabric and that slight stiffness. Again, that yang aspect, it's more harmonious with her because she has more of that yang aspect. But this wouldn't be her best, but just comparing these two, the one to the right suits her more. But I think here, where it's more of a blend with slightly more yang, is where she does her best. So these dresses, they follow her shape, they give her that definition, but they're not overly soft or drapeable like we would want for Selena and Salma Hayek. But they have that, but they also have that yang. And I think this is where she finds her perfect composition. Details. Details should be intricate, ornate, delicate, and quite lavish. An axis of detail and trim is important to help frame and focus the face. Bows, sheer lace, soft ruffles, sparkly applique are excellent. Necklines should be soft and draped or shirred and gathered. Shoulders should be padded but curved. Shoulder tucks, gathers, and bouffant shapes are perfect. Sleeves should be tapered at the wrist. Delicate and ornate buttons and trim are advisable. Waistline should always be emphasized. Gathers, shirring, and draped at the waist are necessary for softness and intricacy. So, this sort of summarizes everything you've been saying for a while, but in a more specific way. And detailing is so important for this type. I love these outfits because they capture all of this in different ways. And I think Selma Hayek is a great example of somebody who seemingly understands what works for her. I don't know that she's working off of any Kibbe typing, but she intrinsically has an understanding of what looks best on her, and it's all of this detailing. So in that first look, you see that bow at her waist, which simultaneously cinches her waist and gives her that shaping, but then also there's that floral kind of bow detail right there. And it's interesting to look at. It's soft, it's delicate. There's all those ruffles of the skirt. The fabric is soft and flowing. There's that glamour of the neckline with her necklace. And it's just beautiful. To the right of that, there is that detailing, that floral diamante sort of detailing, and that's so exquisite and beautiful on her. You see on her wrists, there's also all of that same detail at the neckline as well as at her waist, which takes an otherwise boring black dress and elevates it and makes it suitable for this type. And then to the right, there is that yellow dress, soft flowing fabric, drapable, lightweight, and then there's that velvety rope that ties at the waist, cinches her in, which is great for this type, but it also is the trim of that shoulder or neckline piece. So there's that ruffle, same coloring, it's beautiful. There's that big flower detail at her shoulder. It's soft, it's delicate, it's feminine. Everything just works and she looks amazing. Avoid plain or minimal detail. So in both these cases, Mila Kunis to the left and Salma Hayek to the right of her. This is very plain. There's nothing to look at. And for both of them, they just look a little bit drained, dragged down, and extremely boring. These women lean into that glamorous feel. So when there's nothing to look at, they just look very lacking. And these outfits look incomplete. For Salma Hayek, there's also an issue with the fabric. I think it's too lightweight, it's too girly, and she very much has that more mature, feminine, sexy essence. So none of this is hitting the right notes for her, and the lightness of the fabric for Mila Kunis just doesn't work with her structure and her composition. So both of them just look very underwhelming in these looks. Avoid sharp or severe detail. So that bright hot pink against the black and the white of that sharp neckline with her collar and the same white at her wrist. It's very sharp and highly contrasted. It feels severe. There isn't enough of that feminine, soft, drapey kind of detailing. Everything feels very harsh and striking against each other, which is not ideal for this type. Avoid extremely oversized, bulky detail. So here, that diamante detailing, in the same way that before I talked about the gold fabric that felt like it was cheapening her look, this detail is too bulky and oversized, and in the same way, I feel as though it is cheapening this look. Yes, this is a romantic type and elevated, glamorous, so leaning towards that diamond feel is very great for them. But this feels very costumey and it has the opposite effect. It feels like she is wearing a costume and costume jewelry. There's something that cheapens the look on her and it doesn't match with her essence or even her body type. This fabric is very ruffled in a way that doesn't give her great shaping. All of it just doesn't work. There's too much going on, and she's lost behind all of it. Avoid symmetrical, subdued detail. So here, Selena Gomez is wearing that dress, and it reminds me of a sailor dress for some reason. I think the button's down the middle, but it's clearly very symmetrical, very subdued in detailing. And I think it's the frilly trim off the shoulder. Something about it feels too mature and boring for her. And I think generally for this type, this kind of detailing just isn't glamorous enough. Avoid a crisp, perky detail. So, similar to that third look where that hot pink was against the black and the white, This black and white look on Salma Hayek is very perky, in my opinion. It's very high energy, very sharply contrasted, and it doesn't do enough of that soft feminine draping or soft feminine blending, which is what you want the detail to do. You want it to blend but also be elevated, and this is just very sharp, and it creates a lack of harmony against her. Likewise, that last look has a lot of that intricate detail, but it's all too much. It's too busy. It's too playful and youthful, and she looks very separate from her hair as well. But even taking that out, just looking at the dress, that bow against her and that white neckline trim, the dress is too youthful. Perky detail reads as very youthful and energetic, and this type in general is more mature and sensual. So this really doesn't harmonize with Salma Hayek specifically, but this type as a whole in general. Separates. Your separates should always include an artful blending of plush textures, draped fabrics, and luxurious colors so you never disrupt the soft fluidity of line. So everything has to feel like it goes together and there's a softness and a blendedness and a femininity to it. I think these looks do that well. In that first look, there is one solid color, just a mixing of textures and fabrics, the leather, the plush skirt, but she looks amazing. Red is such a hot color, that siren sort of feel, and she does that amazingly. I love that look on Salma Hayek. To the right of her, Mila Kunis is doing a great job of showcasing a more casual style, like really picking up your kids from school for this type. This is casual, but because of that romantic need for glamour, it requires a bit of a polish to it. So this is casual but elevated, and this is what this type requires. And the jeans are skinny, which means they give that great shaping. She's not lost behind any sort of large silhouette. She just looks great. Everything just works together. The colors work together, and I think she looks amazing. To the right of her, Selena is doing a sort of elevated basics look, but everything feels luxurious and soft. I think that top she's wearing is probably very soft to the touch. It has that plushness to it. Her makeup is done. Everything is beautiful. The colors are repeating in the shoes and the handbag. The color palette is doing a great job of just meshing well, and I think she looks amazing. And to the right of that, again, there is that blend of textures. The colorway itself is very subdued, and this type can do with a bit more than that. But I think this look works on her because you have to consider a look as a whole thing, right? So she looks amazing. I love the plushness of that sweater. The pants are fitted to her. Everything just blends. She's wearing the heels. It's elevated, it's soft, it's feminine, but slightly relaxed, but still elevated. And I think everything else she's doing makes that relaxed feel of that sweater just work with the pants and the rest of this outfit. Avoid any kind of harsh contrast between the top and the bottom. So, going from left to right, in that first image, that bright yellow against that white on Jada Pinkett Smith is very sharp and alarming to me. There's something about it that just feels stark, and we want to, more than anything for this type, move away from that and have it feel more soft and blended. So that really sharp contrast is to be avoided. To the right of that, I feel the same way about that look that Salma Hayek has, the orange dress and the navy blue sweater. What makes this look work a little bit is the fact that that sweater's open, so that orange on the top, because the sweater is open, sort of repeats at the bottom, and it helps to bring it together. But if you could imagine that being completely closed and it's just like a sharp line across her hips where there's an orange bottom and a navy top, that would create a very harsh break horizontally, and it's just not great for this type. To the right of her, Mila Kunis in those red pants and that blue shirt. Again, She looks okay, but this could have been more elevated if those colors weren't so separate. There's just a complete separation between them. Likewise, to the right of that, that red skirt and that shirt. I think also the stripe element of the sleeves of that shirt make it look even more animated. And it overall just looks like there's too much going on. But more than anything, that red and white just looks very separate on Salma Hayek, as a look doesn't cohesively go together. To the right of that, I honestly don't know what's going on, but that skirt, the fit of it is really not flattering on her. And then there's that leather brown, which she's matching with her boots, but it also just feels very disjointed. So that colorway, that inability to blend is really not working. And then there's a bag which brings in a texture and a pattern. There's a little bit too much going on, and in a way that doesn't flatter her. More than anything, this type really wants to create that softness and that blendedness, and these looks really move away from that. So this is to be avoided. Color. Your use of color should be bright and plush, emphasizing a watercolor blend or bright or light motif. Some sharp contrast is exciting, however, you'll always want some vivid color in your outfits. Pastels can also be quite elegant if you mix them with light accessories. Dark colors can be too stark for you unless you break them up with vivid accents or use them in the evening in very glamorous fabrics with sheen or plushness. So here we have a beautiful blend of colors that work for this type. In the first one, there is that brown colorway on Selena Gomez. It's like brownish goldish, but then there's that hint of red. And red in general, I think for romantics is great, especially for those who embody the essence. It's that fiery color of passion as we know it. In Selena's case, it's not a dominant essence, but I do think she has it in a minor sense, and it's always nice to evoke it. But here, I like how it's played against that more subdued color of the dress, and those pops of color make it exciting. It's an exciting contrast for her, and the dress is doing a great job of shaping her body, but not giving her straight definition. So it's just a great look that feels relaxed because of how it's contrasted. And in terms of color, I think this really works for her. To the right of her, Jada Pinkett Smith is a sharp contrast between the blue pants and the white shirt as well as the white jacket, but the colorway itself, the blue and the white, are not so stark against each other to begin with. And then the fact that the white of the jacket goes down so that it creates a sort of blend that doesn't just cut her off where the pants and the shirt would if she wasn't wearing that jacket. The way that that mixes is great, slightly blended, and I think this is more in line with her colors that match her. So there's just a beautiful, more blended feel for her as opposed to being stark against her, and I think that looks great. Mila Kunis to the right of her is wearing that watercolor yellow white dress and yellow heels, and it creates this top to bottom sort of blending that is great for this type, and it looks wonderful on her. This top to bottom dark coloring is not necessarily the best for this type, like Selena has all the way to the right. But because she's wearing it in these plush, beautiful fabrics with a mixing of fabrics, and the back has that diamante detail that adds a touch of glamour, this look works. And she's wearing stockings that gives that touch again of sheer glamour for this type. She's doing a lot of things right where the color being so dark is made to work because all the other things are correct. So there's always a balancing act, and this is a very interesting way to see how that could work for a theatrical romantic. Avoid head to toe darks. That's too stark. So here we see what happens when this head to toe dark is done, but it doesn't respect that plushness of fabrics that we just saw in Selena Gomez. I think for all of these women, these looks are just very dark and draining and boring on them. They don't give enough of an elevation. That first one that Mila has is probably the best because there's a little bit of sheen to those leather pants, And she has that necklace piece that gives also a little bit of sheen. It's just silver, but it gives that touch of a little bit of glamour, but it feels like it's not enough for her. Also, the wide silhouette of those pants is a little bit too wide for her, and it works against her frame. So the overall look is just dragging her and feels boring. To the right of that, that happens entirely because there's that very flat fabric of the grayish, darkish dress that she's wearing. So there's almost no sheen to all of it. And it's extremely boring and extremely draining on her. And likewise, Salma Hayek in this look is just incredibly boring. I don't know where to focus my eyes. I think the silhouette of it is fine. I can see the shape of her waist, but the way that the skirt just ends and then it's the boots, all of that, and the fabric choice, and the fact that it's a t shirt, it's all a little bit too casual and dark and boring. The most interesting thing is that necklace and that neck piece. So she doesn't look bad, but she certainly could look so much better if she chose a different silhouette and added more color to her outfit choice. Avoid monochromatic schemes as these are too dull. So in these two looks, they've gone on the opposite end of the spectrum. This is all much lighter than these three black looks. But again, it's monochromatic for the most part and just boring on this type. Selena Gomez looks okay. There's that very slight contrast between the top and the bottom, but both of them are a little bit loose on her, so there's no shaping of her body. There's really nothing to say about this look. There's no touch of glamour to it. It's just dull on her. And likewise, the look to the right, where Salma Hayek has those pants and that turtleneck. It's great that she has that necklace because without it, I think I wouldn't even know where to focus, but still, it's very dull. Nothing much to talk about. So, this lack of contrast entirely is not the best when this type is putting together separates to create an ensemble. Prints should be vivid and luscious, with the emphasis on an abstract or watercolor blend. Swirls of color, intricate and ornate shapes, and wild florals are best. Rounded or feathered edges are lovely, as are vivid color combinations. Size should be moderate to large. So, across the board here, I see this vivid, lively range of patterns that looks amazing on these women. Selena Gomez starting off, I love that floral pattern. Floral is generally great for this type. It evokes that feminine, soft feeling, which works well with any romantic type. These florals are quite small, which I think works well for her because she has that more youthful essence to her. But in general, florals were great for this type. To the right of that, she again has that floral print, and these are a little bit bigger, but still delicate and feminine, and I think she looks lovely in that. To the right of that, Salma Hayek has that very vivid and interesting print that feels lively, but not too much. It has a lot going on, but somewhat feels subdued. I think this type can handle a lot of different printing. So hers has birds and a forest scene, but I think it works because that more intricate detail is at the bottom, and towards her bust it's a lot more subdued, and then it gets more animated as it moves lower across her body, but it still just feels lively and vibrant, and the pieces within the print are quite moderate to, they're not crazy big, they're moderate to large size, which is good, and up her chest they're smaller, so I don't feel like the pieces of the pattern are competing against her, so there's like a good balance there. To the right of her, Mila Kunis has that more abstract print going on, but the color is red and vibrant, and generally again that's great for this type. So it's flowy, it's feminine, And it's just very interesting, but without being stark against her. And I think that works well for her. Finally, Salma Hayek has that floral print against that black backdrop of her dress. And I think red again evokes that sensuality, that maturity, and those big florals. She's very well capable of handling that. And her floral print, as opposed to Selena's in that first dress, hers is more mature, more sensual, and it works because that is more of her essence. And they all just look lovely and lively in these prints. Avoid geometrics. So this is too sharp and also animated, but that sharpness of the lines of this print is really what's working against Selena. Because she is more soft and rounded, we want more soft and rounded lines when it comes to prints on her. This just feels a little bit too jagged edged and sharp on her. Avoid animated perky styles. The look to the right of that is more swirly, so it doesn't have any of that sharpness, but that sharp contrast between the maroonish and the creamish color of that pattern is too stark. So even though the lines themselves aren't sharp, the color contrast just feels a little bit too stark on her. And then to the right of that, Mila has that gradient almost pattern, and it feels too animated somehow. It's a bit abstract, but the colors striking against each other gives it a very lively feel that is, in my opinion, a bit too perky for this type. And I struggle to focus on her without looking at the pattern of the dress. Avoid small symmetrical styles. So here we have this very lively pattern, but it's just very animated and not a bad pattern, but again, animated and perky. But it's small and the dress itself has a lot of symmetry to it. So it's just not the best for her, I feel. Avoid stripes and plaids. In this three-piece look with the striped top, bottom, and light jacket that Selena has, there's just a little bit too much going on. And again, this striped pattern has too much geometry to it, where I would like to see her in something softer and more swirly and without those sharp edges. And this is just a bit too blunt for her. Kibbe doesn't say anything about this, but I would also avoid patterns that are gradient as this is without any sort of definition. In this look, it's going from green to a more rose-ish color, and it's a soft gradient going down all the way. There's nothing to pick out. There's no shapes. There's no anything really. It's just a color gradient, and I think this doesn't work great for the theatrical romantic or the romantic type at all. They do require a sort of distinction in the pattern, and this is just there on them. And also, I would avoid very animated patterns that are too busy up top. So before we saw an animated pattern, but the top of it was more subdued and you could focus on her face. Here, I feel like I want to look at that waterfall that is cascading from her right side of her chest, and it's there's just too much going on, and this feels a little bit too animated for Salma Hayek, and I would extrapolate to say this type in general. I finally want to look at Mila Kunis because she, again, for me, is a slightly different composition to what I would consider a textbook theatrical romantic. So here, this is a bit of an abstract pattern that we looked at already, and I do think that she is pulling this off. It has the color, the vibrancy, the softness, the blendedness, and it's great for her. She looks good. However, when we lean more into those romantic elements with the florals in the skirt and also in that dress to the right, I think you start to see a separation between her and this sort of pattern. It feels a little bit too delicate and too soft and too yin for her. and her femininity doesn't necessarily come off in that way. So this might work for a different kind of theatrical romantic, for somebody like Selma Hayek. But for her, I see that there is that slight lack of harmony. But at the same time, I'm not saying that she would lean better into the yin aspect of it. So this is a very yin sort of pattern. There is a sharp contrast between the blue and the black, and those lines also are very straight, that sharp V that's repeating. This is very yang. Although we can't see a full look with her face, I see that separation with her. I don't think that this is necessarily what she needs to lean into. This is too much, just in the opposite direction. But here, where she has that sharpness, but it's somehow a little bit more subdued than that middle option, I think is where she really finds herself and she looks her best. This dress that is almost like geometric. It's like a mix of geometric and snakeskin somehow. That is very great on her. I see the sharpness of the lines and the colors, and that is very good. She looks very harmonious in that. And to the right of that, she's wearing that black with the green, and there's very sharp patterning on her skirt, the black and the green. And I think the way that it comes together works for her. So everybody's personal composition is going to become important when we make these distinctions. And what works for her doesn't necessarily work for everybody else, but that's because her composition isn't everybody else's. So it's just something to remember and be mindful of when you're trying to fit yourself within these categories. Thank you so much for watching till the end. I hope this video was helpful to you. If you like the content that I'm creating, or if you want to discuss anything I touched on in the video, please do so. Leave me a comment. Like the video, and of course, subscribe and turn on those notifications. I'll see you on the next one.